Welcome to the next segment of the Mindshare Process video tutorial program. Now that you've taken the time to begin work through the planning process and you've established your internet initiative, we'll move on to the next critical piece of your online success. Getting to know your buyers and what's most important to them is essential to succeeding on the web. The majority of the time, we come across websites and content that goes on and on about all the awesome features the company's products or services have, or about how strong the company's management team is, and how they have the greatest customer support staff on the face of the earth, and how they've grown at a rate of 100% each year for the past decade. That sounds like the right way to approach your web content, right? I mean, your prospective buyers definitely want to do business with a company that's solid and has the latest, greatest features included with the product offerings, right? Wrong. I'd like you to sit down if you aren't already, and if you're an emotional person, you might want to grab a box of Kleenex for the next piece of information I'm going to share with you. Your buyers and prospective buyers don't care one bit about you, your products, or your services. They don't care about all the fancy features you offer them, the fact that you've hired the best customer support staff on the planet, or that your company's sales have gone through the roof. They only care about one thing, and if your website doesn't communicate that one thing to them, they'll leave. Not in a few minutes, but immediately. Not only that, but they'll leave and go directly to your competitor to see if they're focused on that one thing. If that competitor is focused on the one thing they do care about, they won't be back to your site, ever. You can have the best staff, the best products, and be the most financially viable company in your space, and your prospective customers won't care. They only care about one thing: what's in it for them. That may seem harsh and make you feel as if you have a world full of selfish people who are only looking out for themselves. It may make you feel a little bit uncomfortable and maybe even a little sad, but it's true. The internet's changed the world and provided options for your prospective buyers which they didn't even know were possible before. It has shortened the length of time it takes to find a replacement for your company, product, or service from weeks to minutes, and they can conduct that search without leaving their desk. That thought alone can keep you awake at night if you let it. But if you believe it to be true and act accordingly, you can build very strong, deep relationships with your buyers and create raving fans of your company, products, and services by simply paying attention to what's in it for them and providing it. Let's take a look at how things have changed. The traditional sales process used to be very clean and easy. It resembled this funnel where your prospective buyers moved through this nice, straightforward buying process. You would create an advertisement campaign to gain their awareness, and if it was something they were in the market for, or your information piqued their interest, they would enter right into the consideration stage. Once they considered your product or service, they would decide whether it was something they preferred, and if so, they would take action. Once they purchased your product, it was important to gain their loyalty by serving them after the sale. It was all so nice, clean, and easy. But then along came the internet, and more importantly, Web 2.0. This new model might remind you of one of those mazes you used to work on when you were a kid. You had to draw a line from the entrance and make it all the way to the exit without running into any roadblocks. Well, there's only one way to make it through this buying process maze without hitting a roadblock. That way is to completely understand what is important to your buyers and act accordingly. Let's take a look at how things have changed. Your prospective buyers are no longer simply presented with the information that you and your company want them to see. They have several options to find out about your company. They now have the option of looking online to find reviews that have been crafted by their peers on your company products or services. Your prospective buyers can send out an email to their friends or colleagues looking for suggestions and receive a number of responses back almost instantaneously. With Blackberries, iPhones, and Androids, and all the other email-enabled services, we're constantly in touch, and everyone loves to give their opinion on what works for them. With Web 2.0, your past buyers or prospects you've interacted with have a number of options to post user-generated content, giving their opinion of your company, product, or service. They can use blogs, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or a number of other tools to instantly publish their opinion to be easily found online within just a few seconds. They can also check out their competitors with a couple clicks of their mouse. They don't have to wait to fit in a meeting with your competition or even wait for a piece of collateral to arrive in the mail. They can find out 99% of the information they need to make a buying decision within a few seconds. With all these elements out there to possibly influence your prospective buyer, it's becoming essential to not only understand what is most critically important to your buyers, but to act on those important items. We'll show you exactly how to determine what is important to your buyers in the remainder of this video. The companies who take the time to listen to their buyers are the companies that will thrive. The companies who don't pay attention to what's important to their buyers will soon cease to exist. The easiest way for you to get to know what's important to your buyers is to analyze past customer interactions. This sounds like common sense, but how many times have you truly taken the time to review conversations or correspondence that you've had with your customers? With all the craziness of our day-to-day schedules, it can be difficult to dedicate enough time identifying the most common issues which arise in communications with your customers. One way to quickly gain feedback from your customers is to conduct an online survey. There are quite a few ways to conduct a survey online, and it's extremely inexpensive, and in some cases you can create one for no cost. If you're going to put one together, it's important to think about the questions that you'll ask strategically to gain the best insight from your customers. To gain the highest level of participation, make sure you keep the amount of questions to 10 or less and only require the absolute most necessary pieces of contact information. Many people will choose to not participate if they feel you're asking for everything but a DNA sample. I would recommend asking for an email address and that's it. It's also a great idea to tie a contest or award to them spending the time to fill out the survey. Don't be a cheapo either. The only way you're going to be successful is by getting to know what's important to your buyers. And what better way can you find that out than by asking them? If it costs you $10 or $20 per participant in gift cards or discounts, who cares if it helps serve them better in the long run? You will notice an increase in the amount of revenue you gain per customer if you utilize the information from the survey correctly anyhow. It will definitely be an investment and not an expense to gain their participation. Analyzing past phone calls with clients or conducting a phone call campaign to existing customers is another excellent way to find out what's most important to your buyers. The best way to conduct this analysis is to mentally review past phone calls you've had with clients or prospective clients. Write down on a piece of paper important statements they've made. List both the statements they've made about things they like about the process of doing business with you, and just as importantly, or maybe even more importantly, make a list of things they didn't like. As you go through this mental review, you'll start to identify similarities in the statements that have been made by your customers. You'll see what they view as the most important determining factor in their choosing to do business with you. You'll also clearly identify the issues which may choose them to not be much of a fan. Once you've worked through the review, use this information to craft a list of 3 to 4 questions and place calls to your existing customers, letting them know you're working on improving the customer experience you provide. Tell them you have 3 or 4 quick questions you'd like to ask them so that they can make sure that you're providing the best customer experience possible. Let them know their feedback is extremely valuable to you and their happiness is your top priority. How many phone calls have you received from your vendors like this? I'm guessing not many, if any. If you have, I'm 100% positive you felt valued and that company's stock rose significantly in your mind. There are far more companies who make their customers feel unappreciated, and in these days that simply drives them into the arms of their awaiting competitors. Don't let your company become one of those stories. Perhaps the quickest, most accessible way to find out what is most important to your customers is to review past email interactions. It's easy to simply read through an email and not get the full gist of the sender's message. With this in mind, look at past email conversations you've had with your customers and create a list of the topics of conversation. Also, look at the topics which seem to get your customers the most fired up, either in a good or a bad way. This is a great way to prioritize the most important items and identify trends in your business that are making your customers unhappy or happy. For example, if you notice that you've had multiple email conversations where you're defending the timeliness of your projects, and you look deeper and find once the project launches everything seems to be great, then you may need to look at the expectations you're setting with your clients and explain the true length of time that the project will take and why. Typically, if you fully explain a process to your new customers and they know what to expect, things will go well. When you assume they know, you're setting yourself up for failure. This may all seem like common sense, but then let me ask you this. When is the last time you've reviewed your past email interactions with your clients? If you can't think of the last time, or you've never done it, you should do it today. What you will find will amaze you and make you wish you had done it much sooner. Think about the last time you were a finalist in a request for proposal, or you had many positive conversations with a potential client only to find out that you didn't get the business. Did you ask why? Or did you simply walk away with your tail between your legs? I know it stinks to hear the word no from your prospective clients, but if you ask the simple question of, what was the most important determining factor that caused you to not choose my company? The answer to this question can at times save the sale, and worst case, you'll know what to focus on the next time you find yourself in a similar situation. If things always go your way, you don't have the opportunity to improve. However, if you don't know why they didn't go your way, you can only guess on what to improve upon. Unfortunately, most of the time your guess will be wrong. I think you are probably beginning to understand that the mindshare process is all about planning and creating strategies based on factual information and not guessing. If you have the choice between the two, why the heck wouldn't you choose the route based on facts? Similar to how you can gain information from your current customers, you can utilize phone calls to determine why people didn't buy from you. If you found yourself in the past not asking what you could have done differently to earn a company's business, there is no reason you can't call those companies back and ask now. Even if it's been a few weeks or months, they'll still have a reason why and will probably be perfectly comfortable sharing that with you. If they aren't, who cares? You haven't gained the business anyhow. What if the company they chose isn't hitting the mark right now? That one phone call might be what it takes to get your foot back in the door. Let's take a look at it from a pure numbers standpoint. If you've lost 10 deals in the past 6 months, and place a call to all 10, and find out what you could have done differently to earn the business, what if only one of those companies chooses to continue dialogue and possibly hire you? Would it be worth it? I'm guessing it would be. If nothing else, this one tactic could end up adding to your bottom line and end up being one of the most profitable moves you make. Exit surveys are a great way to gain feedback from visitors who arrive on your website and end up leaving before they take any sort of action. Whether it be to purchase a product, signing up to receive a free report, or submit a request for further information, you can program a hover ad with a multiple choice question asking them why they didn't take that action. This tactic might annoy a few people, but the people who have a strong reason as to why they didn't take action will happily fill you in. If you take all the feedback you receive through the survey and put it all together, you'll find some significant data showing areas that need work on your website or your content. The web is something that's constantly changing, and your ability to make those changes quickly and inexpensively is something you need to take advantage of. Remember, test, test, and test some more. Gathering all this information through the analysis of communication between you and your customers, and even those that didn't choose to become your customers, is extremely valuable, and even if you do it incorrectly, you can see a huge benefit. However, if you want to maximize the impact this data can have on your business, you need to take the next step, which is to categorize your buyer types and create a profile for each of them. If you think about it, it's much easier to communicate with someone in a one-on-one basis as opposed to communicating to an entire group. This is even more true when you're dealing with people from different backgrounds with different motivations and points of view. When you create these profiles, you need to put them in front of you when you're crafting any strategy or content for your site, and in your mind, pretend you're communicating to this one person. You'll find it much easier to stay on point. Let's take a look at this example. Let's say you're looking to market Salesforce automation software online. If you were to look at the different targets you'd have to potentially win over to gain the sale, you'd find at least 3 very different personas. First, you'd be marketing to the VP of Sales. This persona would probably be seeking your software so they could keep a close eye on the sales funnel of the salespeople that are working for them. Since it's their responsibility to keep their boss informed for future accounts that will be closing, and this may influence staffing and a number of other areas within the company. It'll be very important to keep a tight leash on the salespeople and have a very accurate outlook of what the sales numbers will look like in an instant's notice. All in all, the VP of Sales is going to be looking for control and accuracy in reporting. Now, you'll also be looking to win over a salesperson. Do you think the same things that are likely of interest to a VP of Sales are going to be appealing to the salesperson? Not likely. Typically, a salesperson is going to be looking for a system that will help assist them in organization and automate some of their communication between themselves and their prospects. They certainly aren't looking for a system which will give their boss an accurate snapshot of their activities they've taken and where their sales are going to be coming from in the coming months. They're looking for a system which will help condense the amount of time that they're selling and free up some more time so they can have more time to spend on the golf course. So it's fair to say the salesperson is ultimately looking for a way to streamline their work so they can have more time to play. Since we are looking at a software product, we also have to keep in mind the technical reviewer of a company. This person could care less about upcoming sales, and they already don't have a very high opinion of salespeople since they just drink coffee all day, telling stupid jokes, and ask some of the most stupid computer questions ever. This person is amazed the salespeople are even capable of breathing. Now the boss is asking them to add a new software program. The technical reviewer is going to be looking for a system that provides solid support and will generate the lowest amount of stupid questions possible. They already received too many, and adding any more might lead to a monitor getting thrown at a salesperson. I'm sure you see the challenges you could be faced with when communicating to multiple personas on your website. It truly isn't that difficult once you understand the personas you're communicating with, but the first step is becoming intimately familiar with each of these personas so that you know who you're dealing with. We'll help you accomplish this in the remainder of the program. This part of the process will help give you a clear picture of what your customer makeup is, and will also help you identify what a good client is and what a bad client is. Let's face it, if you want to create a good, solid company, you need to know what type of clients you want, and more importantly, those that you don't want. The quickest way to annihilate the morale within your company is to have no standards when building your customer list. I know whenever you start a company, the focus is to get business in the door, and it really isn't as important as who it is. Now that's just the beginning, and just because it happens to be the way doesn't mean it's correct. I'd like to challenge you to look at this process as if you're starting a new company, but this time you're going to start with parameters up front and determine the optimal type of business you want so that you can head off the frustration of doing it later and having to endure the pain of firing your bad clients. The first step in accomplishing this is to take a deep look at your customer base and segment your buyers into groups based on the problems they're experiencing and the buying criteria they have. In your mind, this should be a two-step process. You should first look at the companies you have secured as customers and determine the reason why those companies chose you. Meaning, what problems were they experiencing that led them to purchase your product or service? Once you've segmented the companies within your customer base, you should then look a bit deeper and identify the different decision makers within those companies and identify what was important to each of those individuals in choosing your product or service. Once you begin to go through this exercise, you'll begin to paint a very clear profile of the types of companies you serve and the different decision maker profiles within those companies. Again, once you have an understanding of all the players in the sales process, it will be much easier to communicate directly to each of those profiles and get them to the point where they believe your product or service is the one that they should choose. The best way to get through this part of the process is to start at the beginning. You need to identify the specific problems which exist that your product or service solves. This seems like it should be easy, but you shouldn't be looking at a quick and easy answer to spit out. Remember, your goal should be to understand your buyers as completely as you can. Once you do, you'll have no problem increasing your sales. Well, unless you ignore what's important to them. Since we are ultimately going to be using these problems as a means to categorize our current customer base, you'll also have some existing intelligence to compile this list of problem statements, so minimally you won't be staring at a blank sheet of paper. At this point in the program, I'd like you to stop the video and take out a sheet of paper. Once you've done this, you should create a list of problems a customer or prospective customer might be experiencing which your product or service could help them solve. Don't fall into the trap of rushing through this exercise and simply writing down a list of 10 to 15 quick problems. I'd like for you to go into this exercise with the goal of listing out 100 problems. For some of you, this number may be far too low, and if it is, don't stop there. For others, it may be impossible for you to come up with a list that large. Wherever you find yourself on this scale, just make sure you think it through as deeply as you can and exhaust all possibilities. This exercise alone will go far in the process of helping you learn to think like your buyers, and the better you become at that, the higher your sales will increase. Please stop the video now and complete this exercise. Now that you've created a nice big list of specific problems your customers or prospects could be experiencing that will lead them to contact you, it's time to let the experience be our guide and match up our existing customers to the specific problems which you've been hired to solve. You may find that one customer may have been experiencing several problems which caused them to contact you. This is great. It will help you clearly identify patterns among your different personas and help you create much more powerful content that will help you communicate how your product or service will help solve many more problems that you didn't even think of. Your goal when communicating with these personas is to relate to them and show them how well you know them and the challenges they are experiencing. If you can do this, there is absolutely no reason for them to go anywhere else, since you are the obvious expert. To help you create an easy-to-follow list, you should create an Excel spreadsheet in one column, list each problem all the way down the spreadsheet. Once you've done this, you'll need to create a list of your entire customer base. This can be easily done from your accounting or CRM program. Once you've compiled this customer list, you need to look at the customer name on the top of the list and cross-reference it with each problem listed on your spreadsheet. To do this easily, the customer name on the top of the next column, place an X in the row next to the corresponding question. Once you've gone through your entire list of problems for each client, you'll begin to have a nice clear snapshot of your customers, and you'll have the ability to clearly identify patterns among your different buyer types. For the purpose of this program, we have included a sample spreadsheet so you can quickly fill in the blanks. I'd like you to take this time to pause the video and merge your list of problems with the Excel spreadsheet we have provided you. Once you've completed this, generate your customer list and begin to go through each customer one by one and review each of the potential problems and place an X in the box if it applies. Take your time and spend whatever time is necessary to think it through thoroughly. Now that you've identified the multitude of problems your buyers are turning to the internet to solve, and you've looked at each of your clients to determine what problems caused them to seek your company's help, you have some incredibly powerful information at your fingertips. To make sure you take full advantage of this information, you'll need to look through it in detail and begin to categorize your customers into clusters. It's best to not look at the name of the client while doing this, and separate them based on which ones had the largest number of similar problems they were looking to solve. Once you've completed this exercise, you should have a fairly clear picture of the makeup of your customer base. You may find that customers that are looking to have the same types of problems solved may be viewed as either good clients or bad clients. This could point to either the expectations of the clients being set poorly, or it could simply showcase a deficiency within your company's offerings that would help potential clients solve a particular set of problems. If the latter is the case, you can use this exercise to strengthen your team and heighten your knowledge in a particular area. You'll find this exercise can help you in many more ways than you ever thought possible. Please pause the program and go through your list and group together your customer types into clusters. And take some time analyzing what you found. Again, don't rush through this exercise unless you want to seriously diminish the effectiveness. There's no reason to go through this program if you aren't truly interested in getting the most out of it that you can. It's important to note that there are fairly significant differences when dealing with B2B companies or B2C companies. This exercise is excellent for both, But if you're working primarily in the B2B arena, you'll need to go one step further and break it down into the specific job title of the individual you're marketing to. The Salesforce automation software was a good example of how to identify your buyer types inside of the companies you're targeting. It's entirely possible that you'll need to communicate to the individual company types differently as well. Just spend the time to think it through. If you do, you'll be greatly rewarded by the increased revenue you'll receive by providing an excellent user experience to your visitors. Okay, now that you've reviewed your list and categorized your customer types into clusters, let's look at the results. How many customer type clusters did you identify? Most companies will find anywhere from 4 to 6 distinctly different customer types. If you found more, take a few minutes to verify that they are clearly different. If you found less, look a bit deeper and determine if you looked at your customer makeup too broadly. Please pause the video for a couple minutes and measure what you came up with. If you find you were so thorough or not thorough enough, make some modifications until you feel you are finished. Now that you have your customer types broken up into their individual customer types, you need to determine what the representation is within your existing customer base. If you find you have 4 clearly different customer types and each of those groups have 25% makeup, that would be surprising, but it may be true. The facts are what they are, but in most cases you'll find 20% of your customers account for 80% of your business. The whole 80-20 rule doesn't seem to fail very often. Once you've determined how your customer base is represented by customer type, you need to determine which category of clients you would consider good clients. Everyone's idea of a good customer is different. Some companies view any customer that pays their bills as a good client. Other companies believe only large accounts are to be considered good customers. Again, this is something that you'll need to determine. And once you have your guidelines of what makes a good customer, measure your makeup to see if you have specific strategies in place which will lead to the accumulation of more of these type of customers. In my opinion, it's even more crucial to identify what are bad clients. You may go through this exercise and determine that your bad clients far outnumber your good clients. That can be a scary thing. If you find some disturbing number like this, don't be surprised when you realize that the reason you have so many bad clients is because you're directly employing strategies and behavior to attract these type of clients. For example, if you find you have a problem with your receivables among a large segment of your customer base, I can almost guarantee you that you don't have solid accounting practices in place, and this has led to your customers taking advantage of your lax practices. If you find you have a large makeup of clients that are unwilling to pay for the awesome results you produce, if you look deeply, you will probably find that you have strategies that are attracting bargain shoppers or customers that have very low budgets. Every action produces a reaction, and once you've accurately analyzed your customer base, you can almost reverse engineer how you've gotten to the point based on the strategies and behaviors that you've been employing. Once you've identified your customer makeup and have a clear picture of your good and bad customers, it's important for you to target those good buyers that you identify as most receptive and focus on providing them value and creating a strong relationship with them. If you're working hard to solidify your relationships with these types of customers, you will attract like customers, and once they arrive, they'll see how well you know them and instantly like you. Think about the times you've encountered a salesperson who you're looking for a reason to buy from because you just think that they're a great person. If you reflect upon these cases, I'm sure you'll find the reason you liked the person was either because they were very similar to you, or they provided you with so much extra value above what it was that they were buying that it was a no-brainer. You have the ability to attract the perfect customer types to your business by making sure you're building your website and your business around the benefits your product or service can provide these customer types. That's the exact reason why you need to fully understand your potential buyers. You also need to take into consideration who other buying influencers might be. This is where the similarity between B2B and B2C exists. In B2C, the husband or wife may be a buying influencer. Most likely it's the wife, since we all know who truly rules the roost. In B2B, you may have the purchasing department who has to give the ultimate sign-off. Either way, in B2B or B2C, there are oftentimes more than one person involved in making the final buying decision. It's important for you to understand this and identify the different buying influencers and develop strategies to convince those that are resistant why your product or service is the best option for them. If you take the time to think back to deals where you didn't win, you can probably find a consistent pattern of influencers who stopped your progress and caused them to choose another company. If you can, identify that pattern. You can pretty easily find out what it is that caused this to happen. Once you've got that figured out, you should have a very clear idea of how to prevent it from happening in the future. This completes the video segment on understanding your buyers. I've covered a considerable amount of content in this video, and even if you've taken the time to pause the program throughout, you could probably still benefit from going back through and spending a significant amount of time reviewing your findings and thinking of strategies to increase the good results you've experienced and lessen the amount of bad results you've received. There is no perfect answer that applies to every company, since all companies are different, but knowing the correct questions to ask and the right metrics to monitor will help improve your chances of success greatly. Thank you.